It is a windy morning in Babane as we begin the last week of June, and welcome to the first episode of the week. Good morning. I hope everyone had a restful weekend and is ready to take on the days ahead. Now, we begin this morning with a matter that has gripped the nation, public outage. It is growing louder across social media as households and businesses grapple with daily electricity interruptions, as the Eswatini Electricity Company rolls out load management measures that many say are inconsistent and unpredictable. So what exactly is behind these power cuts? Why are some areas blacked out for longer than others? And how long is this expected to continue? In a moment, at exactly 6:30, we speak exclusively to the EEC's General Manager for Customer Service, James Mabunza. He's going to clear the air, and we surely, when we end the show today, you will have the answers. And just before we wrap up the show, Linda Mastadlamini is in with a full weekend sports update, from local matchups to big international results that you do not want to miss. Obviously, on Friday, we did anticipate that thriller of the finals game between Evelyn Bering High School and Manzini Central, a thrilling Insta-Cash Schools tournament that finally saw Evelyn Bering High School edge Manzini Central in that nail-biting penalty shootout. A match that ended in a draw during regular time before goalkeeper Lihle Mhlungu made the decisive save in sudden death. It was a momentous win for Evelyn Bering, marking the end of, obviously, Evelyn Bering's finals jinx and earning them the 2025 title of the Insta Cash Schools competition. This was under the Eswatini Schools Association Sports competition. And meanwhile, on the global stage, of course, the tournament that Eswatini TV continues to broadcast, FIFA Club World Cup, we anticipated a thrilling match once again between Borussia Dortmund, which ended a dramatic 4-3 win over Mamelodi Sundowns on Saturday. This was in the scorching Cincinnati midday heat. Sundowns struck first, but Dortmund eventually prevailed. And much to Africa's disappointment, we did see that a lot of Africans were rallying for Mamelodi Sundowns, and indeed Sundowns showing us a glimpse of hope towards the end of the game, but just wasn't enough for Dortmund. So that game, a couple of other games from the FIFA Club World Cup, we do discuss this morning with Linda Master as he joins me at 7:30. So stay with us. Also, perhaps let's take a moment to congratulate the newly appointed principal secretaries appointed by His Majesty King Mswati III, an announcement that we saw over the weekend. 4 portfolio ministries now have new principal secretaries, and we congratulate them as they start soon. They are new jobs. We hope that they carry them with earnest and honest resolve, and that Maswati indeed benefit from the services that are endowed by the respective ministries. It's 4 minutes after 6. As we continue with the show, let's look at leading headlines this morning. We'll start with the Eswatini Observer. Our top stories here. This is the front page. Big story speaks to Baqede's hardware that has been demolished. We see a TLB demolishing Siteki Basset hardware on Friday, which was owned by former MP Mduduzi Baqede Mabuza. This was done to give way to a shopping complex to be built by an Asian businessman. A full story is inside this publication. On another one, widow hacks lover in jealous rage. 73-year-old woman bludgeons lover with axe over intimate call from another woman. Another story, Prime Minister is off to the US-Africa Summit, and ex-PS Beggy says, I am still shocked. Last story, MP arrested for forgery and assault. We look at the back end of this publication. What are the top stories in the sports news? He is here to stay. Rubber still on the wheel. That is according to PRO LinkedIn Kule, who assures supporters that Simelane remains managing director. Simelane signed an 18-month management contract in April. Other stories. 6 new football laws for 2025. Danger made US champions, according to Ben United. PLE wants club's ownership status is reviewed, and Luca fights ESA disciplinary action. Eswatini Daily News. We start with the front page. The top story there, Mbiveni sponsors local influencers appreciation dinner. And then inmate cells now like hotels, according to Minister Prince Simelane. And Prime Minister arrives in Angola. Another story, UNESCO student to represent Eswatini at ARSO General Assembly in Zanzibar. The back end of this publication, Eswatini Daily News sport headlines. Wanderers slap Bucks Downs with 500,000 in Malangeni costs. The Hub Giants have garnished both Moneni Pirates and Denver Sundowns through the office of the Premier League of Eswatini, and this is after winning Jimo Moses' protest case. Another story, EFA elections date has been revealed, and Manchester City squad must be trimmed, according to Pep Guardiola, the head coach. These are the leading headlines this morning from our publications this morning as we start the final week of the month of June. We'll go for a break. We'll be back in Eswatini.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Tinzabathe Siswati, inkosi Mswati wesithathu seyithumise umndeni wakaMasilela eTriloni Park kaManzini ngekufaka sandla lesibandi ekuphephiseni isive saseNingizimu Afrika lebesilelwa-ke inkhululeko ngesikhathi sembuso welibandlululo kulela live. Ngonyama yethi leli khaya lakaMasilela selita ukuba indzawo yemlandvo lovikelekile kuleli njengoba umsebenzi walo ucamise live leSwatini etiveni temhlaba. Ngonyama beyikhuluma imelelwe ngusihlalo weliqoqo Paul Dlamini emcimbini wekugubha iminyaka lenge-60 yaleli khaya. Lo mcimbi bewubanjelwe eRoyal Villas eZulwini.
Ingonyama ithi nobe umbuso welibandlululo eNingizimu Afrika bewunesibhuku lesimatima, kodwa lo mndeni wakaMasilela bewuniketa lithemba kubalweli benkululeko ukuthi ngalelinye ilanga inkululeko yawutholakala.
For decades under the roof of this house, members of the liberation movement found refuge and strength. As one historian has noted, Umakoko is a woman who owned, ran, and managed a house that harbored, sheltered, conscientized, and developed members of the ANC. In 2009, the Republic of South Africa posthumously awarded Rebecca Makoko Masilela the Order of the Luthuli in silver, citing her inspiring contribution as a nurturing mother to the exiled cadets who lived in Eswatini during the struggle. We were proud that our kingdom's history was given a voice on the global stage, reminding the world that the anti-apartheid struggle was regional and united. Here at home, the Kingdom of Eswatini has moved to preserve this memory. Our government has formally recognized number 43 as a protected heritage site.
Babili balaba-ke bahlala kuleli khaya lakaMasilela lekungilindiwe Zulu kanye naso lisho-ke bachaze ngaluthando nekunakekeleka lebebaluthola kuleli khaya nasebukhosini belive leSwatini.
If it wasn't for forced removals eHankoko, ngaba sizanga eSwazini, we could have stayed there or we could have been pushed to i-township ebizwa eMadadeni today. The forced removals eMadadeni, but my grandparents and my grandmother in particular, wathi yena akafuni ingane zakhe ziyokhulela elokishini. It would be better to move to Eswatini. So the schooling years is the bond between ourselves and the Masilelas. Abo Masilela nabo naba. We all are children who grew up in Eswatini with very good education.
Inkosi sokuza kakade valeliso le uvule le. So it is such support. Ukuthi noma babonile babonile ukuthi bakababhaqile na xa bebabhaqile manje ukuthi wayebabonile. So that's the support that the Syrian Swaziland was a fragile country by then, but at least more partly kulungile kumele babhaliliswe linye uhlonzi.
Kulo msebenzi lo mndeni wakaMasilela uhloniphe bukhosi ngemhlomelo lonembhalo lokhuluma ngemlandvo waleli khaya lelatiwa nganumber 43 Trironi Park. Kanti kuphindze kwahlomeliswana labanye labalekelela umsebenzi waleli khaya etigabeni letihlukene letifaka ekhatsi kunikelela labeswele kanye nemchudzelwano wematubane kutsi ichubekele embili kwasikwa nelikhekhe lebelihalalisela iminyaka lengama-60 yaleli khaya kanye nalabe bahlanganisa iminyaka yabo yekutalwa lengama-60. Kubika Mbonga Dube, Anasondo Mlangeni, Ezulwini.
Umhlonishwa Mvunankhulu sewulishile leSwatini walibhekisa eAngola lapho ayawumelela khona ingwenyama emhlanganweni we-United States of America nemave ase-Afrika. Mvunankhulu usukele esikhumulweni setindiza eKing Mswati III International Airport ngelisonto ekuseni lapho avaleliswe khona indvuna yetemidlalo yemasiko nensha umhlonishwa Bongani Nzima kanye nendvuna yetekuvakasha umhlonishwa Jane Simelane.
Sithanda kubika lihambo lesilithatha namhlanje lolibheka eAngola lapho khona kunemhlangano we-USA Africa Summit siyomelela live kangane ke sithunye ingwenyama ukuthi ke sibe ingcenye yalomhlangano silimelele nelive khona. Umhlangano ke khuluma ngama subjects lamanyenti ingcenye yawo kuthengiselana lenye yakhona ke tekulima agriculture sihamba nayo ke indvuna yaka agriculture khona ke kuya eAngola. Taba ngumhlangano lomfishane lotawusheshe kuphela sithemba ukuthi ke inkosi idaba nathi.
Indvuna litiko letekulima umhlonishwa Amandla Chauka ithi litiko lisabuka indzaba yekwekutsi kube netindzawo lapho kutawugcinwa tinkhomo letibuyiswa kuleli ngemuva kwekutsi titfolakale tebiwe emaveni yabomakhelwane. Indvuna ithi litiko selivele libacashile ke bantfu labatawulungisa bofenisi eminceleni yelive. Indvuna ithi live linetifundvo letifundzisile ke kulesimo sekuphetfuka kwesifo semlomo nemasondvo. Indvuna ikuvete loku uma iveta loko live lelikufundzile na lelitakulungisa.
Hulumende welive laKangwane nakatfola kutsi lesifo sesibhedvuke eshiselweni wasumela etulu kuthi-ke kube netindlela tekusivikela ukuthi singanzi nelive lonke. Kungumanje uhulumende usebenzise imali lenganga-6 million emalangeni kuthenga umjovo lotawucala kujova tinkomo kusukela ngeMsombuluko kuletindzawo letitsintekile. Noma hulumende lemetamo ayendile, kunesidzingo setinhlelo letitawenta kutsi lesifo singangeni melula lapha eveni. Indvuna yelitiko letekulima umhlonishwa Amandla Chauka itsi-ke live kukhona tifundvo lelitifundzile ngalesimo.
In future nje ukuthi kufuna kube nendlela ukuthi vele kuletindzawo ema-quarantine ethu awasimanengi eveni. Nyalo nje noma ngabe sithi sifuna ukuthi sesibeka ndzawonye leti angisho sisuka kwenta njani kude kahle lendzawo. But nje lenkinga lenkulu esinayo ukuthi inqumo tiyebiwa ikakhulu leminyelelo. Manje-ke nasetibuya kufuna siye quarantine. So sesitawu khona nje sitawulungisa la kubonsaliche sithi sitayibhukule ekhathi saliche sakhe liplayi. Sisakhe i-secluded area lesithatha inqumo latebiwe khona ingela khona. Nangala Bolunzi we have the same problem. But over and above that, ukwakhala ama-quarantine sinatiwele kuye khona. Kufuna bese siyawaqinisela ama-condom fences. Besivele sikulo hlelo lokwenta ukuvusa ama-condom fences. Manje-ke vele sakalicethi as a result kwanyalo nje. Sekhona indzawo leti open between us and South Africa. Kodwa-ke sisetiwato besixhasha nje ama-condom cards, I think yesterday the day before bayolungisa lo dalada ukuthi kufanele.
Kuphetfuka kwalesifo semlomo nemasondvo sekwende kutsi kumiswe kutsengiswa ngaphandle kwenyama yakangwane timakethe letingesheya letifaka ekhatsi Norway, Taiwan, United Kingdom kanye-ke nasemaveni alabamhlophe European Union member states. Kubika Sondomlangeni, Kusambabane.
Umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu Russell Dlamini ufikile edolobheni le-Luanda eveni le-Angola lapha yawumelela khona ingwenyama mswati wesithathu emhlanganweni wahulumende waseMelika kanye nemave ase-Afrika. Libandla laNdvunankhulu lifaka ekhatsi indvuna yetekulima umhlonishwa Amandla Chauka kanye nendvuna yetemcebo waphansi nemandla umhlonishwa uMvanenkosi Lonkhokhela.
Umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu nelibandla laliholako bafike ngetitfuba tensimbi yesikhombisa kusihlwa enhlokodolobha yelive le-Angola iLuanda. Ndvunankhulu ubheke ukuthi amelele ingwenyama emhlanganweni we-17 wahulumende waseMelika kanye nemava ase-Afrika i-US Africa Summit. Lo mhlangano ubheke ukuthi ungenele bantfu labayinkulungwane-500 labayifaka ekhatsi baholi bemave lange-40 ase-Afrika kanye nebaphatsi betinkampani letitimele naleto letingephansi kwabohulumende kulelivekati le-Afrika. Sicubulo salonyaka sigcile kakhulu ekubukeni ematfuba ekuhlanyela imali e-Afrika nekusike tinkampani taseMelika tiqinise tindzaba tekutsengiselana emkhatsini kwe-Afrika nayo iMelika. Ubanjwa nje lo mhlangano uhulumende wamengameli Donald Trump ucubeke njalo nekwenyusa umthelo wemphahla lengena iMelika iqhamuka ngaphandle kwalela live. Kanti-ke njengoba sivumelwano setekutsengiselana ngaphandle kwetincabekelwano emkhatsini kweMelika ne-Afrika lesatengeka ukuthi agowa sindengandenga, i-Afrika ita kulo mhlangano kutawukhongosela iMelika ukuthi ete sabuketwa yini kabusha lesivumelwano noma ngeke kubukwe lenye indlela i-Afrika lengatsengisela ngayo impahla yayo eMelika. Umbiko ohlanganiswe ngeLinkedIn Gule ngiseLuanda e-Angola.
Litiko letekulima selivakashele tinkhundla letili-12 kuletingemashumi-54 lapho litiko lilalela tidzingo tebalimi kanye nebafuyi. Mapalanelo omkhulu etiko letekulima Sydney Smelane utsi letikhalo labatitfolako letinye tato setilungisiwe keze letifaka ekhatsi tincabekelwano tekubolekwa kwebalimi imali esikhwameni sekutfutfukisa abalimi Eswatini National Agricultural Development Fund kanye nekuniketa emaswati tinhlanti mahala ikakhulu labo labasesenemadamu.
Yeah, lo sirealize ukuthi bayakhala netindzaba tetimali ukuthi imali ayitholakali kalula. Sawa-reviewa ema-requirements ethu e-Agriculture Development Fund. Nasiwa-reviewile utawukhumbula futhi nekuthi i-Agriculture Development Fund iniketa i-security kumuntu lode yena sibambiso. So siyakhona thina ukukunika imali ube kude wena sibambiso. Kwesibili, le kula ma-farmers lesisebenza nawo afuna kulima, adzinga tindzawo tekulima, adzinga ema-inputs. Kune-funds lesesiwakhile lamanye besides le-Agriculture Development Fund lesiwacondzise ngco kulolu hlobo noma kuleyo particular sector lesentela ukuthi utothola lusito kuwo. Kunembodi nangabe nje ufuna ukuba ngumlimi wema-vegetables, kunendlela lesesiyenda nyalo ukuthi wena uthole lusito. Sinakileke kokuthi lolu sito lolu in the past beluba khona ukhanze ukuthi ubolekwa imali umuntu, but nje nyalo le system lesesinayo kulambodi ithi utawufaka 60% wena wale mali, thina sikufakele 40% mahala, ayibuyi leyo mali leyo. So nguleto tintfo lesitifundzako-ke nasisakhulumisana nema-communities. Sinakileke kuma-communities nekokuthi njena baphila abantu sifuna thine baphile babe nutritious, ibe nutritious i-diet yabo. Bese sesisa-introduce elihlangothi loluthinte loka fisheries lontakwenda ngokuthi bantu babe nayo i-access to tinhlanti. Bekavele akhona fisheries but bekunema-limitations lathinte ngoba beka-manager timo letikhona eveni. But nyalo we are literally providing, siyaniketa emaswati, lama-fingerlings, labantwana baleti mfishi labancane, naso ulakhele damu lakho sikunike noma 1,000 uhambe uyofaka. And at the moment we are providing that for free.
Nobe kubambisana kwesive nemibutho lebukete kuthula nekulwane tehlakalo kumcoka ekuqinisekiseni ukuthi live liba nenqubekela phambili nenhlala kahle, kodwa kuthula kuphepha kanye nempumelelo lengiyo kutholakala ngekubambelela kusimakathe. Ngaleso sizathu libandla i-Love of God Assembly laseNgwane Park kaManzini libambe inkonzo ekuthandazela kusebenzisana ngebunye kanye-ke nangekuvana emkhatsini wesive kanye nemibutho leyahlukene kuleli.
Lo mthandazo ungenelwe ngemaphoyisa embube nesive bemnyango wekucondzisa timilo beticishamlilo belusito lwekucala kanye nalabanye kanti ubanjwe ngaphansi kwesicubulo lesikhuthata ukuthi sive imibutho lehlukene kanye nelibandla kusebenze kanye nangebunye kude kuphumelele inhloso yinye yekuthula. Umfundisi waleli bandla le-The Love of God Assembly, umpostoli Mbongeni Khoza uthi imibutho yetekuphepha nelusito loluphuthumayo iyadzinga kubanjiswa nekuthandazelwa kude ikhone kuphumelela emisebentini yayo lehlukene.
Nakutaba nebudlelwane kutawuba lula ukuthi nathi sisitane nabo bayasisita nathi futhi siyabasita, sibambane sibe munye singabandlululani ngoba lokusebenza singumkhambathi munye noma as a community, as a united front, then sitawukhona lokuthi sincobe noma yini lesingabhekana nayo ngekubuka tigemeko letentekako nekuba lukhuni kwemsebenzi wabo. Sase siyakhumbula ukuthi thina njengelibandla sibitwe uNkulunkulu ukuthi asibe lihlahlandlela ekukhulumeni futhi nasekusekeleni lelo live lesiphila kilo.
Umfundisi Clement Dlamini lophindze abe ngilobukela uhlangothi lwetenhlala kahle enyuvesi yakuleli ukhuthatele imibutho ngelivi letihlabelelo 127 verse 1 leligcizelela bomcoka bekubeka simakathe embili kwako konke labakwentako.
So la so the country was so porous and with attacks in the country. God said we need to raise the walls in this country. We need to raise the walls and then put watchmen on the walls. Because the weapons of our warfare, they are not carnal but are mighty. Do the pulling down of every stronghold.
Minyaka yonke imibutho yetekuvikela kuleli ngekuthatha lunyawo emakhosini elive iyayibambe imithandazo yekucela lomdzala wetinsuku ukuthi ayihambele embili emsebentini yayo lekusinyathelo lesesithethwe nangemabandla emimangweni njengaleli le-The Love of God Assembly. Kubika Mbonga Dube, Ananothile Sithole kaManzini.
Bafundzi betikolo letiphakeme letimbili kuleli bacela lusito lwemali kude bakhone kuba ingcenye yembutsano lomkhulu kulelivekati wetindiza tebuciko i-Africa Drone Summit. Labafundi baka-Form 4 bobabili banelikhono etifundweni tebusayensi nebuchwephesha. Bafiseke kuthekela lwati kulo mbuthano lotawubanjelwa eCape Town, eSouth Africa ngalesithathu mhla ka-25 June kuya kumgcibelo mhla ka-28 June 2025.
Thobani Gina lofundza ezindwendweni high school naThandeka Maziya lofundza eSomjolosa high school bamenywe ukuthi babe yingxenye yalombukiso wema-drones walonyaka. Kuyo i-Africa Drone Summit kubheke ukuthi kuhlanganiswe tinjulabuchopho kutebuchwephesha kushiyelane lwati ngekutfutfukiswa kohlangothi lokwakhiwa kwema-drones ne-artificial intelligence kuleli vekati. Umfundzi longuThabani Gina sovele ubalelwa kubantfu labasha labaneshisekelo kutemjinela ngobe wakhe i-drone latsi bekafise kuyikhangisa kulombukiso kude buciko bakhe bubonwe ngumhlaba. Gina uveta kabanti ngale drone.
Le drone ngiyakhe nge-waste. I need more material to make another that can exist. Le drone lena ingasita wonke umuntu. Like balimi or labafuyayo. Liphupho lami ezingisakhula bengifisa kwenta engineering. Ngisebenze ngetintsamo ngishisele.
Lomunye umfundzi longuThandeka Maziya uthi ufisile kungenela i-Africa Drone Summit kude akhone ukuthuthukisa lwati lwakhe ku-artificial intelligence.
Mina as a young girl ngibuka ukuthi nyalo siphila in a generation where we need IT kakhulu. Okay, my interest ukuthi ngifunze ngibe IT engineer in my future. Ngikhone ukudevelopa and solve ema-problems lahambelana ne-ICT. Ngingacela Swaziland ukuthi abe khona lama-course la faka kakhulu ku-IT.
Xolani Kambule wenhlangano lengiyona ihlangabeta letinye tidzingo talabafundzi Only God Knows uthi kude labafundzi babone emaphupho abafezeka kungaba kuhle ukuthi bangenele ematfuba lafana nele-Africa Drone Summit.
Lesingakucela nje thine kuhulumende weNgwenyama sicela lokuthi amane asibambise ukuthi abantwana bakhone lokuthi bathole lithuba lelingcono bahambe baye ku-Africa Drone Summit lapho khona batabuya nema-certificate babuye lakha eSwatini. Then ke lakha eSwatini lengakujabulela ngajabulela ukuthi sekukhona ukuthi bakhone ukukhicita labanye abantwana according to lama skills labanabo.
Ngambule uthi lona bekathembise kubasita ubese ungena emeneni kanti imali labayidingile ilinganiselwa ku-10,000 emalangeni kude bakhone ukufika eCape Town bangenele lo mhlangano wemalanga lamathathu. Lofise ukuphosa litshe esivivaneni angachumana naXolani Kambule ku-7871 9004. Kubikano Telesithole Nambongwa Dube Mathapha.
Kutemidlalo emalunga enhlangano lengamele ibhola avumelene ngekuphasiswa kwaleminye yemitsetfo sisekelo yayo lenhlangano lefaka ekhatsi kubhalisa lenhlangano ibe inkampane lengayendi inzuzo kanye-ke nekucashwa nekucoshwa kwemphathi walenhlangano kunembiko.
Mhla ka-13 ngenyanga yamabasa kulomnyaka losetulu inhlangano lengamele umdlalo webhola kuleli yabita umhlangano lowatiwa ngokuthi extraordinary ehhotela lesibane sami lapho khona lenhlangano beyiyobikela emalunga ayo ukuthi inhlangano lengamele umdlalo webhola emhlabeni iFIFA ithi akushintshwe kungakayiwa ekhethweni lebuholi lobusha balenhlangano kulomnyaka losetulu leminye yalemitsetfo. Emalunga ngalelo langa akhala ngekuthi acela ukunika isikhathi lesanele bahambe bawulungisa kahle nabo kuleminye yalemitsetfo lathi FIFA bayishintshe. Inhlangano lengamele ibhola kuleli yaphinza ubita lo mhlangano extraordinary mhla ka-4 ngenyanga yeNkwekwete ehhotela le-Happy Valley lapho khona lokwaphuma lapho kulo mhlangano ukuthi kutawukhethwa likomiti lelibuke wona kulungisa kwalo mtsetfo bese liyabuya lethulela wona emalunga lenhlangano kulenye extraordinary meeting ngetintfo lekumele tilungiswe. Namuhla leli komiti lethuliwe kanzi kuleli komiti leliholwa ngusihlalo walo Nicodemus Mashwama kunasimanga Nhleko Bongani Mdluli lijaji Manene Thwala kanye nalokushongwe likhonile ukuthi lethulele lamalunga ngayo leminye lemitsetfo lekumele ukuthi ilungiswe. Ethulela lamalunga lokushongwe kuleminye yalemitsetfo efaka ekhatsi ukuthi inhlangano ye-Eswatini Football Association ibhaliswe njengenkampani kodwa-ke lengayendi inzuzo lapho khona emalunga lelikomiti lelihola yona lenhlangano atoba amalunga labasunguli balenkampani kodwa-ke nakuphela isikhathi sokuthi babe sehhovisi baphindze baphume kulenkampani. Kuleminye imithetho leshintshiwe ifaka ekhathi kucashwa kwemphathi wayo lenhlangano phecelezi Chief Executive Officer lapho khona phambilini imandla ekucasha nekuqosha yena lo mphathi bekakumengameli onke walenhlangano kodwa-ke nyalo sekutoba likomiti lihola lenhlangano kanti kulokunye lokukhona kulomthetho lomusha wayo lenhlangano ukuthi likomiti lihola yona lenhlangano kumele libe nemalunga la12 lihola umengameli wayo lenhlangano bese kuba masekela lamathathu nemalunga la7 lafa ekhathi ibosihlalo labahola ibhola etifundzeni kanti lelikomiti kumele libe namunye make lokumele akhethwe kanti nangabe bekavele akhethiwe kusho ukuthi bataba babili lamalunga bese ayophasisa lomthetho kanti uphasiswa nje lenhlangano ngenyanga yeNgci mhla ka17 itawubamba umhlangano lomkhulu wayo wekuphetha umnyaka lapho khona kutophinze kukhethwe buholo lobusha bayo lenhlangano kanti labo labatongenela lolukhetho batomenyetelwa ngenyanga letako kanti sikhatsi sekukhankasa batawuniketwa bonke labangenele lolukhetho lobuholo hayi bomengameli kuphela nasekufike sona sikhatsi sekukhankasa labo labafuna kuba ngumengameli walenhlangano batawuniketwa sikhatsi lesingu-15 minutes labo labafuna kuba malisekela batawuniketwa sikhatsi lesingu-10 minutes bese kuthi labo labafuna ukungena kuba malunga elikomiti baniketwe isikhathi lesingu-5 minutes lobikako kulinda Dlamini ezulwini.
Mengameli wenhlangano lengamele umdlalo webasketball kuleli Clement Dlamini uthi abakakhoni kwenta kahle ekuthuthukiseni lo mdlalo eminyakeni lophelile kodwa batimisele ukuthi kulomnyaka bawuthuthukise kucala esikolweni kanye-ke nekubamba imiqhudelwano lefaka ekhathini yabomake kanye nebantu labakhubatekile. Dlamini bekakhuluma makuchubeka umhlangano wekwephetha umnyaka walenhlangano lebewubanjelwe e-Olympia Africa kalobamba. Stishiya lapho nzabathethu Eswatini sitawubahlola emakethe sitawubuya masinyane sichubeka nehlelo.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalobuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle. Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m. On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswana.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswana.
It's 37 minutes after 6. Welcome back. You're still watching Gusile Breakfast Show. Well, the electricity cuts that we are experiencing every too often now are no longer just an inconvenience, but they seem to be a national talking point now. If you go on social media, if you listen to people, if you use public transport, it seems to be a growing concern. Some households have been plunged into darkness, of course, businesses disrupted, and social media timelines indeed flooded with this frustration. And this morning, we have the Eswatini Electricity Company, which, of course, finds itself under this public scrutiny. And as complaints mount over, it is ongoing load management issues. It is the conversation around when does it stop. Some say the schedules don't match reality. And others report spending an entire day without power, while a few claim their areas remain completely unaffected. So the question becomes, what exactly is happening behind the switch? Joining me now is James Mabunza, the General Manager for Customer Service at the Eswatini Electricity Company. He's going to clear the air for what we're experiencing and perhaps give us answers that are satisfactory. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program, Mr. Mabunza.
Good morning, Swiss. It's my pleasure, and it's our pleasure to be here this morning.
Indeed, the public is outraged. I think that's the one thing that we can agree on. And of course, the dominant concern is confusion. It's not necessarily, this not being common, at least not only to Eswatini. We've seen it happen across many countries. But, we just want to clear the confusion. And I suppose, what exactly does this, what you call load management exercise, entail? And what necessitated its implementation?
Swisso, this is about assisting customers, in the sense that we have a situation where we've always been advising and helping customers reduce load, reduce consumption during this time of June, July, August.
Yeah.
And the reasons are that during this time, we tend to consume a lot of electricity. And when we do, we then, even though we may say that there could be some confusion now, but the confusion is even bigger where customers are concerned that they tend to consume a lot and they think that those meters are running faster during this time, and which is not the case. So what is necessitating this exercise is that we would like our customers to sort of maintain their consumption, because they complain that I've not changed anything. My consumption pattern is still the same. But how come? So where it assists mainly is in that, in terms of the cost to the consumer, and there's a bigger picture as well, which means that because when you have to ramp up your generation, in other words, increase generation to meet the demand, it means that in future you will need even bigger machinery, bigger generators to meet that demand. And to do so, obviously, it requires finances. Yeah.
And I suppose that is indeed very costly, not only to you, but it will have a downstream effects to the consumer again, who will eventually raise concerns once again. But I suppose, true to what you're speaking, we often do say during winter, surely EEC is doing something. My electricity units are, depleting at a faster rate. I myself have, been such a culprit. But I then realized, what, maybe I have my geyser for far too long now because I like to come back to hot water. But then it pinches my own pocket. And I suppose that sort of clears the air. But another concern becomes, with the schedule that you have, some are saying the reality doesn't necessarily reflect the published schedule. Some customers claim that, of course, their lights are off far longer than expected, and that indeed concerns them, even for an entire day in some areas. Why that discrepancy, if it's true?
We try our level best not to have that discrepancy. But there are situations where we will have a plant maintenance.
Okay.
You can't not do plant maintenance. If you look at it this way, some 3-4 weeks ago, we had winds, serious winds, and that to us turns out to be some form of storm. And we had in the region of 10,000 reported cases of outages. Now, when you have a situation like that, it will show you where you have weaknesses in terms of the network.
Okay.
Now, that plant maintenance is absolutely necessary to do, because then you are avoiding a situation where, when you have situations like this, then you will have significant outages out there. So whilst we have the load management, we still have to do plant maintenance, because then we'll have more problems when we have situations like your storm. So this is why, and of course you will have situations where for one reason or another you have unplanned outages. But otherwise, the time for load management, which is the peak time, is your 6 to 8 in the morning. When I left my house this morning, there was no power. It went out at 6. And it will be back at 7. And then, of course, others are scheduled to be from 7 to 8. And then in the afternoon or the evening, it is from 5 to 8. So the groups are grouped such that in the evening, the one group is out for 1.5 hours, and the other group will be out for 1.5 hours. So it is not 1 hour in the evening, it's actually 1.5 hours. But we emphasize that customers must consider, whoever may want to touch those lines must consider those live, because we can switch them on anytime within that time.
By considering, you mean, making the necessary sort of proactive measures to have your water warmed, have your phones charged, to, literally have everything that will require electricity at its optimal.
What we advise is that it is better to have your water warm before 5.
Okay.
And that geyser doesn't take long. I mean, it will take 1 hour.
That's true.
And you'll have your water warm. And
unless you're trying to skin a chicken, of course.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
And anything that hits an iron, so it can be an iron, it can be your geyser, those are the serious guzzlers of electricity. So you want those things to be out most of the time. Yeah.
I suppose that makes sense. Of course, there's the plant outages that still occur, which you speak to, and the load management, which are two different things. And I suppose it's very important for the viewer at home to really be able to differentiate. But at the same time, as they differentiate, some may think this sounds like a double strain on us. But you do allude to the winds that we have experienced. Some were very, very intense in the past couple of weeks. One may want to even submit that even this morning we're waking up to fairly intense winds. And I wonder if such winds do have an effect on these plant outages, the ones that we're waking up to today.
The winds will turn out to be unplanned outages.
Right.
The example that I've made, Fiso, is that some 3-4 weeks ago we had winds.
Yes.
And they had a significant impact, which turned out to be in the region of 10,000 or more outages. And then after some 2-3 weeks, we also had wins, but those ones did not have a significant impact, which means that the weak points had been dealt with.
Right.
So, but where I was going was that we still have to continue with planned outages, and those ones we always publish. We always publish through social media to make sure that our customers will know, and even through radio, etc. So that our customers will know that during this time we can expect that EEC will be working on these lines, and therefore we will not have electricity. They can plan accordingly.
Okay. Perhaps going forward, you do want to use Kusile Breakfast Show as I suppose, a priority platform in terms of notifying the nation, because we have a lot of people watching us in the morning, and it is the morning anyway. You speak of 6 to 8 in the morning. We are up at 6 to 8 in the morning ourselves. So I suppose this would be a good strategic area, and perhaps you can talk to our marketing team for that. But keep going with our conversation, Mr. Mabunza. On the flip side, and I suppose this is indeed concerning, because there are areas that are reporting no outages at all, literally no outages at all. And I wonder, we speak of a national sort of, load management framework. How does that, have any truth to it?
There is. What we do is that, you see, we are a big country.
Right.
But when it comes to business, we consider ourselves that we mustn't exaggerate that one.
Okay.
We must protect business.
Of course.
So now that, because now we have feeders that will feed your Tembelihle, for example, in the case of Mpabane, or Coast Valley in your case of Manzi, etc. So if there is big business along the feeder, we don't target that feeder.
Okay. Fair enough. I suppose that's fair, and I suppose it answers the many questions that people have.
Absolutely. We have to protect employment. There's so much that we need to protect right there.
How long will this last? If you were to give us a sort of a clear sense of the duration of these measures, are we talking days? Are we talking weeks, or the entirety of winter, so to speak?
We are talking the entirety of winter.
Okay.
We're talking until the end of August, which is not such a long time, really. And one would really ask that we try our level best to allow this to happen. It would be good. It would be good for us going forward.
Good for the consumer as well.
Good for the consumer. In fact, when I say us, I'm talking about the consumer. I'm not talking about, you see, because we belong to the consumer.
Yes.
Yes. And thank you so much for bringing that up. We talk about the consumer. We are just in the front and advising and making sure that everything goes according to order, and we maintain and sustain this industry.
Beyond the inconvenience, what are the dangers? Let's talk grid stability, if you like. I want to understand what happens when demand exceeds capacity in a system like ours.
All right. So the situation is that Eswatini is integrated within the region.
Okay.
It's like the smaller generators that do solar. They cannot generate without EEC. No, not the home ones that have small batteries, etc. Right. I'm not referring to those ones. There's slightly bigger ones. You know, your 1 megawatt, your 1.5 megawatts, etc., which is 1,000 kilowatts. So now, in a situation like that, we are integrated, and being integrated means that whatever we do will influence. It will influence the consumption from the others.
Right.
Mainly where we import power. So we plan around having those targets, and during your peak time, it is the time when the systems in the region are constrained. They have to generate much more in order to meet that demand. This is why then it becomes much more costly. If you ask business, they will tell you that it does become very, very costly.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. When you speak about it, it just makes sense. But during the launch of this exercise, your managing director urged consumers to reduce usage. And I I want to understand the collective benefit of this appeal, but most importantly, are Eswatini responding?
No, Eswatini are responding, but we have found that it becomes also necessary because we don't meet those. When we don't meet those targets, we then have to do the load management. And the bigger picture is that as an individual you save. I know that there are others that have said, no man, there is a narrative that when you switch off your geyser, the water becomes too cold. And when you switch it on again, it will consume more electricity. No. It doesn't happen. I have a timer at home, and that doesn't happen. And I actually see the savings. Yeah. So whilst it is a collective benefit, it will also amount to an individual benefit.
So I suppose when you say Eswatini are responding, you're also saying they're not responding enough, because you are, of course, acknowledging that we are seeing that they are responding. But at the same time, because they're not responding enough, we still have to continue with our measures. Is there a sort of utopian reality where if we all responded enough, is there anything as responding enough where you wouldn't have to take any of those measures?
Yes. If we responded enough, we wouldn't have to take the measures.
So if we treated every day like it was Earth Hour?
Kindly. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, and we are capable of doing it. Look at the Earth Hour. We've been managing to save, your 20-something megawatts.
Yeah. Quite significant.
Quite significant, yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Let's talk imports. We learned Eswatini imports more than 60% of its electricity. And if we talk numbers there, I suppose we want to ask how costly is this for the company and ultimately for the consumer? I know it's an old conversation, but we're here.
And it will never be too old for us to talk about it. Because for as long as we do not have sufficient generation in the country, we will have to do that. So it is very costly. We are finding that engagements with our suppliers is really becoming more and more difficult. And it means that electricity will be much more costly. So when we can move away from these peak hours that we're referring to, there is a benefit. Because overall, the benefit is, even though Sfiso, that when you buy electricity, you have a flat rate.
Yes.
But business doesn't have a flat rate. Yeah. So the bigger pool is the one that influences tariffs going forward. I made reference to investment earlier.
You did.
Yeah, I made. If you wanted to take 80 people to Manzini, and you have to buy an 80-seater bus, but you have to take them in the morning and in the evening. If you can ask them that 40 of them you take them in the morning at 8, and then the others you pick them up at 10, do you realize that you can buy a Sprinter? You don't need the very significant investment.
100%.
So the cost that goes with it, it will be much better once we have increased our own generation to the extent that because then we can manage, particularly where we are using our own resources internally. Yeah.
Thank you for the practical examples that make it easy for the layman to comprehend, where we're going with this conversation. I do want to understand some of the, the big aspirations, perhaps outside of EEC alone, but nationally and internationally as well. Obviously, nationally, we have the Energy Master Plan, which targets full independence by 2034. I wonder, what does that roadmap involve, but also what progress have we made so far? I think it's 9 years, right? 2034 from 2025 should be 9 years, if my math.
9 years.
Yeah.
9 years. We're actually looking forward to getting there before that. With the plans that we have, at Makuka there we are increasing generation from hydro by 10. We are also in the process of drilling for geothermal. The in Eswatini, the Manzanas,
right,
hot springs, yeah. we are sourcing financing for that. And we are also looking at the coal thermal, clean coal thermal. And that, once we get there, we will have actually enough as a country, to the extent that we actually want to export, because there is an opportunity to export.
Well,
right
that would be
there.
an interesting turn of
And
events.
as a country, we make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would make lots of money. Looking at how much we are spending importing that 60% of electricity, I mean, that would be really, really interesting for our economy and its transformation.
Absolutely.
Practically speaking, I know you've submitted some recommendations for households to assist in, managing the electricity use more mindfully. But if I were to give you a chance to speak to the people at home right now, what would you say households and businesses alike can do to manage the electricity use more mindfully?
I would say that plan to not have your geyser on. That is the biggest guzzler.
Okay.
That's the biggest consumer. Plan not to have your geyser on from 6 to 8. You can switch it on before that, because if for example, you switch it on at 5, by 6 you can switch it off. If you switch it on by, say, 3 in the afternoon, you can switch it off at 4 or 4:30. That is sufficient. And then the other thing that you want to do is to avoid using anything that I say it heats up an iron. Whatever. It can be an iron, these serious consumers, as it were. But the other thing is that as a consumer, you will see that there is on your CIU, this thing that when you punch your units, you will see that it blinks in red. It blinks. When it blinks slowly, it means that your consumption is very low. But when it starts blinking much faster, it means, because once it blinks for 1,000 times, your unit is gone.
Okay.
So with that only, you can determine that, I am consuming too much or not. And then the other thing is that switch off anything that you don't require, including lights. So this helps. And then you can also, you may not use heaters during that time, because that too is a serious consumer.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you'll see a difference.
Okay. What I'm picking is that the one thing that you are vehemently against is the 2-hour, switch on the geyser. That's from 6 to 8. You're saying, let's try 1 hour. Try 1 hour, maybe from 3 to 4 in the afternoon, from 5 to 6 in the morning, whatever. But try to decrease it to an hour at the very least, because it will heat up your water. We are not trying to skin chickens here. That should be enough for you to bath. But also you're saying your irons, and I suppose your stoves, let's just say heat emitters in the house. Anything that emits heat. It's going to char your electricity units there. But also we must switch off things that we are not necessarily using. So if you're in a room, if you're not in a room and you have your lights on, switch them off.
Just switch them off. You don't realize how much that will save the country. Because now I think it is important, because some consumers say that I bought my electricity and I have my units. Yes, indeed, you've bought your units. But what happens is that it is when you consume those units that the electricity is generated. Yeah? When you consume those units is when the electricity is generated. So it is important for us to be circumspect when it comes to when we consume the electricity.
Mr. Babunza, thank you for your time this morning. We hope that Maswati Sakatamu save kangcono ke. So you are talking saving the country, that will save the country if they follow these recommendations that you are submitting. But I think at a more intimate level, it will save their pockets, because that seems to be the biggest, source of complaint. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much indeed. It's our pleasure.
Mr. Mabunza is the manager for customer service at the Eswatini Electricity Company, and that's your conversation. We'll come back after the ad break and we'll look at international news.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. It's 2 minutes after 7. This is our international news. Russia and Ukraine have intensified their drone and missile strikes as US-led peace talks teeter on the brink of collapse. Ukraine's Air Force reports that Moscow launched 86 drones overnight, resulting in at least 1 death and dozens of injuries.
A woman narrowly escapes from her home as the apartment block is engulfed in flames. The Russian strikes hit Odessa in the early hours of Friday. Local emergency services say at least 10 drones targeted the city. Among the injured, rescue workers hurt at the scene. Odessa is Ukraine's largest Black Sea port and has been under constant attack since war broke out.
When Russians are targeting civilians and residential areas while cynically trying to say something to the world, I have nothing to say without profanity.
Drones hit at least 8 locations across the country. In Kharkiv, investigators assess the latest damage as part of their case into alleged war crimes committed by Russia. The city's mayor says Thursday night's assault hit in 2 waves. The first, a residential area. The second, targeted outbuildings in another district. Both involved kamikaze drones. The Russian Defense Ministry released this footage of artillery strikes on alleged Ukrainian positions. It says its army eliminated at least 61 Ukrainian drones and gained ground in the Kharkiv region.
U.S. struck Iran. Iran's Mehr news agency had said Israel had launched strikes on the southern city of Shiraz, which hosts military bases. Israel said it had killed 3 more Iranian commanders in this unprecedented offensive, and Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar claimed Tehran's alleged progress towards a nuclear weapon had been set back by the 2 years.
As missiles continue to fly between Iran and Israel, this parking garage of a Tel Aviv shopping mall has been converted into a shelter for local residents. Many have come here, reassured to be sleeping safely after dozens of civilian deaths have shaken the country.
You know, it's 4 stories underground, and it's like an atomic shelter or something. And you've got all the facilities here, so it's much nicer than being at our small shelter at home.
In Iran, Tel Aviv has continued its offensive, hitting a nuclear research facility in Isfahan province with a number of strikes. The Israeli army also reported that it had killed 3 top Iranian officers in targeted strikes, including one involved in the October 7th attacks.
This morning, we announced the elimination of Said Izzadi, commander of the Palestine Corps in the Quds Force and the coordinator between the Iranian regime and the Hamas terrorist organization. Izzadi was one of the architects of the October 7th massacre.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has maintained that his country will not halt any nuclear activities while under fire from Israel. On Saturday, he visited a state broadcaster's building destroyed by Israeli missiles and shared harsh criticisms of Tel Aviv with reporters.
Israel talks about democracy and human rights in the world. They talk about peace. This is a sign of their human rights. They attack the media. Don't you think that dialogue is free?
Saturday night to Sunday morning, Israel renewed strikes on the Iranian city of Shiraz, as well as in Tehran and surrounding regions.
At least 430 people were killed and 3,500 were wounded in Iran since the start of the Israeli-Iranian conflict on June 13. Iranian state-run Noor News reported on Saturday, citing the country's health ministry.
Hospitals in Tehran are busy treating victims of Israeli airstrikes on the capital. This patient reflected on the moment she was wounded by the impact of explosions and what's happened since.
I think I've had 5 surgeries so far. I think I have nothing right here that is actually intact. It feels like inside my belly everything was replaced. And my leg? I don't even know. I just survived.
Another patient was out making deliveries when he was injured.
I'm a delivery guy. I had 2 deliveries to make. Something blew up right in front of me. I realized my head was bleeding. I touched it and saw blood on my hand. I was shocked and panicked, and I started shouting.
Some in the hospital struck a defiant tone.
If they hit us, we should hit them back. If they hit us twice, we should hit back 10 times.
Iran's deputy health minister confirmed that the civilian death toll is mounting.
Absolutely, it is not just the military, targets. They are attacking peoples and those who are near in neighboring areas of that, or those people are at risk. And that's why we have that number of civilians killed in these attacks.
Those who can are choosing to leave Tehran, while others are opting to stay indoors, leaving the city streets and shops eerily deserted.
Well, the U.S. military struck 3 sites in Iran early on Sunday, inserting itself into Israel's effort to decapitating Iran's nuclear program. This is in a risky gambit to weaken a long-time foe amid Tehran's threat of reprisals that could spark a wider regional conflict.
After days of speculation, the U.S. enters the Israel-Iran conflict in dramatic fashion. A show of force from Washington, with President Donald Trump confirming direct strikes on Iran's nuclear sites.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The Trump administration is said to have notified Israel in advance of the strikes. It's a move long awaited by Benjamin Netanyahu. In his first statement since the attack, the Israeli Prime Minister praised Trump for what he called a historic decision.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do.
Saturday night strikes saw B-2 bombers, one of the U.S.'s top aircraft, target Fordow. It's Iran's most fortified nuclear site and is considered out of reach for Israeli weapons, not for U.S. ones. Natanz and Isfahan, key parts of Iran's nuclear infrastructure, were also hit with other U.S. weapons. While the Trump administration frames the attack as a step to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, U.S. intelligence suggests Iran's program remains in the research phase. Tehran had previously warned of irreparable consequences if the U.S. entered the conflict.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday praised U.S. President Donald Trump for carrying out attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities, which Trump said devastated Iran's nuclear program.
After U.S. planes bombed 3 Iranian nuclear sites early Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was singing Donald Trump's praises. At Jerusalem's Western Wall, he offered a prayer for the American president.
May God bless, God protect and help and exalt and elevate and uplift on high the President of the United States, Mr. Donald John, son of Mary Ann, for he has taken upon himself to drive out evil and darkness in the world.
In Tel Aviv, some Israelis are expressing gratitude for the U.S. bombings, which the American government says caused severe damage to Iran's nuclear capabilities.
Go for it, Trump. Thanks for helping us. Thanks for being next to us. Thanks the American people. Thanks the government. Thanks the pilots, the soldiers. I love you, and I love Israel.
But many are also bracing for heavy strikes from Iran, which has vowed to retaliate in what it calls self-defense.
We are waiting. We know already for a while that we need to be very careful. I hope everybody will take it seriously and will go to shelter. And we just wish that we can have peace as soon as possible.
Following the U.S. attack, Tehran launched heavy rounds of missiles that hit residential areas in multiple Israeli cities. Across the country, many were injured or displaced from their homes. As Israel and Iran continue to exchange missiles, civilians on both sides continue to endure the consequences of the ever-intensifying conflict.
Well, at least 23 people have been injured after Tel Aviv and 2 other Israeli cities came under fire on Sunday by Iranian missile barrages. It came hours after U.S. strikes on nuclear sites in Iran, which Iran's foreign minister said would be met with everlasting consequences.
Wake of U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, the first signs of military action from Tehran. Buildings left barely standing after Iran unleashed 2 waves of missile strikes, hitting parts of northern and central Israel.
As you can see behind me, we're in the center of Israel, central division of Israel. A missile fire hit right inside of the building complex behind me, still treating here wounded around us. Thankfully, nothing that severe, but minutes after the blast was heard, we'd already made our way on scene, and we'll keep on treating.
Israel's air defenses had tried to block the attacks, with interceptions seen in the skies over the occupied West Bank. But some of the barrage slipped through. Israeli cities including Haifa, Rishon LeZion, and Tel Aviv were hit by strikes. Many taking shelter from the bombings, like this American couple stuck in Israel. France 24's Catherine Norris-Trent got their reactions to the US's attacks on Iran.
And I approve of the American strikes. Israel shouldn't have to live under nuclear threat from the Ayatollah in Iran.
Are you worried now with these big explosions and the fact that Iran has said that American citizens in the region could be a target?
No, I am not. I mean, Israeli citizens have been targets here. They have intentionally attacked civilian targets all along.
Iran's foreign minister says it reserves all options to retaliate, while Washington has threatened further strikes.
Well, several close U.S. allies urged a return to the negotiating table in the wake of American strikes on Iran that fueled fears of a wider conflict, while noting that the threat posed by Tehran's nuclear program. Some countries and groups in the region, including those that support Iran, condemned the move while also urging de-escalation.
A message of gratitude appears in the Israeli capital, just hours after President Benjamin Netanyahu thanked his US counterpart for attacking Iran's nuclear sites. But around the world, there is increasing concern about what happens next. and if this could lead to another full-scale war in the region. Japan's Prime Minister was the first to speak on camera.
It is of the utmost importance to calm the situation soon. At the same time, Iran's nuclear weapons program must be blocked. We are closely monitoring developments with grave interest.
The UN Secretary-General warned of catastrophic consequences for civilians, the region and the world. European leaders have also responded. France was quick to deny any involvement, and the President of the Commission called for international law to be respected. The British Prime Minister spoke directly to citizens on national television.
So I want to reassure the British public that we're doing everything we can to stabilise the situation, to de-escalate the situation, and to get to a negotiated outcome. But I'm very clear in my own mind that Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. That is the greatest threat to stability in the region.
This as Pope Leo XIV pleaded for the countries to silence their weapons and urged leaders not to forget about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. In the Philippines, protesters gathered to condemn the US attacks. The Russian Foreign Ministry also denounced the strikes, calling them an irresponsible decision, while China said all parties, particularly Israel, should cease fire.
President Donald Trump's decision to join the war is a major risk, but it also puts the tens of thousands of U.S. service people stationed across the region in a dangerous situation.
Naval, land, air, and logistical bases. The United States maintains 8 permanent military bases in the Middle East, along with several temporary sites. In total, 40,000 to 50,000 American troops are stationed in the region, a presence that has lasted for decades. About 10,000 are based in Qatar, at Al Udeid, the largest military base in the region. It serves as the headquarters for the U.S. Central Command. Established in 1996, it covers 14 hectares and hosts around 100 aircraft and drones. The base has played a key role in operations across Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and the fight against ISIS. In Bahrain, the naval support activity hosts 9,000 personnel. It's home to the U.S. Fifth Fleet and serves as a major logistics, supply, and command hub. The Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates focuses on reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, and support for aerial combat operations. It hosts advanced aircraft and various surveillance planes. In Iraq, the Erbil Air Base is used by U.S. forces for air operations, especially in northern Iraq and Syria, where troops advise Kurdish and Iraqi forces. The U.S. military presence in the Middle East is thus extensive, with some bases located just a few hundred kilometers from Iranian territory.
All of their bases are within our reach, and we will not hesitate to target them in the host countries.
In some places, crossing the Persian Gulf is enough for Iran to reach American bases. It could also rely on one of its most active proxies in the region, the Houthis in Yemen. Armed by Tehran, they regularly strike Israel and U.S. positions in the area.
Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth on Sunday revealed details of the unprecedented operation, which included submarines, B-2 planes, and 14 bunker buster bombs that were dropped on the underground nuclear facility of Fordo.
Decoys, deception, and total obliteration, keys to a successful operation to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities in one go, now known as Operation Midnight Hammer. But how exactly was the operation carried out? The intricate details of the mission were made public at a press conference on Sunday.
We are unaware of any shots fired at the package on the way out. Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us. Throughout the mission, we retained the element of surprise.
A risky plan, which was explained with this graphic, published by the Department of Defense. While the world's attention was on the B-2 bombers which had been moved to Guam, it was actually at a US airbase in Missouri that the real action was taking place, as 7 B-2 bombers began their 18-hour return trip to Iran, only made possible by refueling mid-flight. A total of 125 aircraft participated in the operation. Fighter jets flew ahead of the group to escort the B-2 bombers, which dropped a total of 14 bunker-buster munitions on Fordo and Natanz, while a Navy submarine fired Tomahawk missiles at Isfahan. The operation was the largest B-2 strike in US history and the second longest B-2 mission ever flown. While Pete Hegseth called the mission an overwhelming success, it is not yet clear what the extent of the damage was on each of the 3 sites.
Of talks aimed at de-escalating fighting between Israel and Iran failed to produce a diplomatic breakthrough as the war entered its second week with a fresh round of strikes between the two adversaries.
Talks in Geneva between European foreign ministers and Tehran in a bid to find a path back to diplomacy on Iran's nuclear ambitions. The French foreign minister urged Iran to resume negotiations with all sides without awaiting the cessation of strikes.
There can be no purely military solutions to the challenge of Iran's nuclear program. Military operations can delay a nuclear program, but by no means eliminate it.
Tehran's foreign minister said no to talks on its nuclear program while the violence continues.
Iran is ready to consider diplomacy once again, and once aggression is stopped and the aggressor is held accountable for the crimes committed.
This was the first face-to-face meeting between Western and Iranian officials since the start of the conflict. Tehran said it supported the continuation of discussion with the European countries and was willing to meet again in the near future. US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, said he was unlikely to press Israel to scale back its strikes to allow Washington's negotiations to continue.
The Iranian foreign minister this afternoon said if the U.S. is serious about negotiations, that you would call up Israel and request that they stop their airstrikes. Will you make that request?
Well, I think it's very hard to make that request right now. If somebody's winning, it's a little bit harder to do than if somebody's losing. But we're ready, willing, and able, and we've been speaking to Iran, and we'll see what happens.
He was asked if the European-led talks had helped.
Did the Europeans help at all in talking with the Iranians?
No, they didn't help. No. Iran doesn't want to speak to Europe. They want to speak to us. Europe is not going to be able to help in this one.
Trump says he will decide whether Washington will join Israel in its efforts against Iran within the next 2 weeks.
Well, 3 French employers in the champagne industry are on a trial for human trafficking and exploiting around 50 migrant workers during the 2023 grape harvest. Investigators reported the workers, primarily from Mali, Mauritania, Ivory Coast and Senegal, were housed in an unsafe and degrading condition. The trial is being held in Chalons-en-Champagne.
They were helping produce one of France's most luxurious exports, champagne, but say they were treated like slaves. Now in a major labor abuse trial, 57 undocumented workers hired as grape pickers are accusing their employers, 2 men and 1 woman, of exploitation. They say they were housed in deplorable, unfit conditions.
Where we slept was simply inhabitable. There was no water, no electricity. We're waiting for justice to be done and to finally be recognized as victims.
It was in September of 2023 when the workers were hired to pick grapes at a vineyard in France's Marne region. They were housed in a barn, sleeping on inflatable mattresses with not much else. Lawyers representing the 57 workers say the mistreatment went beyond poor conditions. They were also threatened.
One man had a knife and told them to go back to work. It's just shocking, and that's exactly why we're calling it out.
Defense lawyers in the case say the accused were simply overwhelmed by the urgent need for seasonal labor.
They were dealing with huge recruitment issues. This means they had to act with urgency, which could lead to outbursts.
Advocacy groups say they hope the trial will lead to an industry-wide reckoning.
We're here because we want the profession to finally wake up. These practices have to stop. We've been sounding the alarm for years.
If found guilty, the defendants could face up to 7 years in prison and a €150,000 fine.
Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil was released on Friday from the federal immigration detention, freed after 104 days by a judge's ruling after becoming a symbol of President Donald Trump's clampdown on campus protests.
Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil walks free after more than 3 months in detention since his arrest by ICE agents in his New York apartment in March. One of many foreign students arrested for participating in pro-Palestinian activism, he became a symbol of President Trump's crackdown on campus protests and on immigration.
Trump and his administration, they chose the wrong person for this. That doesn't mean that there is a right person for this. There's no right person who should be detained for actually protesting a genocide.
Born in Syria to Palestinian parents, Khalil came to the U.S. legally and was a graduate student at Columbia at the time of his detention. A visible leader in on-campus pro-Palestinian activism, the Department of Homeland Security commented that his arrest was linked to, quote, President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio invoked a 1950s obscure law that allows for non-citizens to be removed from the country if they are seen as detrimental to U.S. foreign policy. However, the federal judge did not agree.
Petitioner is not a flight risk, and the evidence presented is that he's not a danger to the community. Period. Full stop.
The ruling is a setback to Trump's aggressive policy on immigration.
Justice will prevail, no matter what this administration may try to portraying that immigrants are, whether criminals or any of that, trying to do all of this now.
The saga is sure to continue. Responding to the events, a White House spokesperson released a statement Friday.
We expect to be vindicated on appeal and look forward to removing Khalil from the United States.
As a condition of his release, Khalil has been ordered to turn over his passport and forbidden to travel internationally.
Hurricane Eric claimed at least 2 lives in southern Mexico, causing severe damage to coastal areas before weakening into a low-pressure system. One victim in Oaxaca state, where the storm made landfall, was electrocuted while clearing debris near high-voltage cables.
A trail of debris where businesses and houses stood hours earlier. Residents of this village in Mexico's Oaxaca state assess the aftermath of Hurricane Eric and begin cleanup operations under heavy rainfall.
We had never seen anything like this before. It was supernatural. The whole town has been homeless, without clothes. We have no help.
Across Oaxaca and neighboring Guerrero state, similar scenes of fallen trees, residents wading through flooded streets and downed power lines being restored.
Some businesses had roofs made of branches that were blown away, and the palm thatched structures collapsed. Some items are broken.
Hurricane Eric slammed into southern Mexico's coastline on Thursday as a powerful Category 3 storm, but weakened as it moved inland. The hurricane caused landslides, blocked highways, damaged plantations, and left over 120,000 without power. Authorities warn of ongoing heavy rainfall as the storm continues to move up the country, with Guerrero State remaining on maximum alert. Its coastal town of Acapulco had been hit by a Category 5 hurricane just 2 years earlier. This time it was better prepared, with heavy presence of National Guard and police.
Greenhouse gas emissions reached a record high in 2024, averaging 53.6 billion tons per year over the last decade. This is according to a report from over 60 top scientists. The study highlights alarming trends in carbon pollution, sea level rise, and global heating, pushing climate change into uncharted territory.
Stark warning. A new report from over 60 climate scientists showing the world may be running out of time for limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees.
I think it shows a pretty harsh reality, right? You know, things aren't just getting worse, they're getting worse faster. We're actively moving in the wrong direction in a critical period of time that we would need to meet our most ambitious climate goals. Some reports there's a silver lining. I don't think there really is one in this one.
Scientists say we're on track to burn through the planet's remaining carbon budget far sooner than expected. That budget represents the total amount of greenhouse gases we can emit and still have a 50-50 chance of keeping warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Back in 2021, the UN estimated that we can afford to release around 500 billion tons of carbon dioxide and still be on track. But today that figure has dropped to 130 billion tons. By 2028, the world would have pumped out enough CO2 that even a 50% chance of staying within the Paris goal would be off the table. Meanwhile, the impacts of climate change are already being seen across the planet.
We are seeing the impacts of climate change on extreme heat. We're seeing it on extreme rainfall. We're seeing it on sea level rise and storm surges if you're in a coastal area. We're seeing it in wildfires. And it is now no longer possible to just say, oh, this is just something that the scientists worry about. It doesn't affect normal people. It's affecting normal people and it's affecting them all over the world.
Fossil fuel emissions remain the main driver of this warming. The Earth already hit a grim milestone last year. 2024 became the first year on record where global average air temperatures were more than 1.5 degrees above those of pre-industrial levels.
31 minutes after 7, that marks the end of our international news. We'll go for a net break. We'll be back shortly.
There is an industry that spends over $1 million an hour on advertising, and they're constantly looking for younger and newer consumers. Do you know why? Because they know that their product kills up to half of its users. We are talking about the tobacco industry today, and our expert is Simone Sinclair. Welcome, Simone. So we know that there are no safe tobacco products, right? Whether it's shisha, chewing tobacco, rolled cigarettes. So how is it that the tobacco industry is succeeding in selling us death and destruction continuously?
Great question. The tobacco industry is well aware that their products kill around 8 million people globally every year. To sustain their business, they must continuously recruit new users to replace those who die from using their products. And because their products are so harmful, they must do everything they can to make them attractive, especially to young people. One of their biggest tactics is flavors. If you think about it, tobacco on its own is harsh and unappealing, but when you add mint, mango, bubblegum, or vanilla, they seem less dangerous. Flavors are meant to hook you and then keep you addicted. This is not by accident, this is by design. Research shows that flavors are one of the main reasons that children and young people start using nicotine and tobacco products. And once they start, they become addicted quickly.
So just like flavors, there is research that shows packaging can attract consumers to products, right? How does the tobacco and nicotine industry use packaging to attract younger and younger people and women especially?
Tobacco companies use minimalist designs and bright colors to make their products look premium or even clean. But as you mentioned, there's no such thing as a safe tobacco product. Let's take slim cigarettes, for example. These are cigarettes that are designed with narrower dimensions and traditionally marketed to women. They're often associated with sophistication and elegance and are wrongly perceived to be less dangerous. But in reality, they pose comparable risks to regular cigarettes. Then if we look at the more recent nicotine products, sleek, colorful, and high-tech. To be clear, when we're talking about nicotine products, the most common is e-cigarettes, also known as vapes. E-cigarettes are designed to look like USB sticks, lipsticks, and stylish gadgets, which are easy to disguise and conceal from parents and teachers, which is particularly concerning when it comes to children and young people.
So we know that most people who consume tobacco products know that it is harming their body, but let's go over it again. How exactly does tobacco impact our body?
Tobacco use harms nearly every organ of the body. It causes heart disease, respiratory conditions, and over 20 types of cancer, including lung cancer. Tobacco is a major risk factor for non-communicable diseases and premature death. But the good news is that the benefits of quitting can be felt almost immediately. Within 20 minutes, blood pressure and heart rate drop. Within 2 to 12 weeks, lung function and circulation improves. Within a year, the risk of heart disease is cut in half. And over time, the risk of tobacco-related diseases decreases dramatically.
Another interesting fact here is the plain packaging or graphic warnings that you often see on cigarette boxes. That's actually a result of the work that WHO and partners have done to bring in those policies to inform consumers about the dangers of tobacco. So let's talk about another tactic, and that's advertising. You see tobacco advertising in music concerts and sports events. Talk to us about that.
Exactly. The marketing budget of big tobacco is larger than the GDP of some countries. They spend tens of billions of dollars every year to hide the truth that tobacco kills. They use social media influencers, music festivals, and giveaways to promote their harmful and addictive products. They use cartoon-like branding and sleek advertising to attract young users. And you'll notice in some stores they place nicotine and tobacco products near candy, which leads children to believe that they are innocent or even exciting.
Simone, how can public health agencies like WHO stand up to the tobacco industry, which seems to have massive resources, right?
Science, evidence, and awareness is key. The more people know about these tricks, the less effective they become. We need to ensure that people are aware of just how harmful tobacco products are and how they destroy families and lives. WHO and countries are working together to put in place public health policies, things like smoke-free public places, bans on advertising, making products less affordable by introducing taxes, and putting graphic images and health warnings on product packaging. And latest data show that more than 5 billion people around the world are protected by at least one of these measures. This is a result of strong and decisive regulatory action. As a consumer, don't be fooled. If nicotine or tobacco products look fun, tasty, or trendy, they're designed that way to hook you. So spread the word and support policies that protect public health.
Thank you, Simone. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time, then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
KBS Sports Update, 39 minutes after 7. Linda Mastadlamini sawuvele unathi estudio. Siyita uqala lapha ekhaya ngemidlalo lesiwubukele ngelesihlanu lapha eMavuso Sports Center. Lakhona Evelyn Bering beyithole neTulu neManzini Central High kuma ncamu Insta Cash Schools Competition. It's the Eswatini School Sports Association, formerly known as the SSSA, now known as the ESSA. That clash that invited and excited a lot of fans from across the country an interestingly packed stadium, which again is going to be a conversation between myself and Master in terms of the revival of football at Tikolweni. What a beautiful showcase. But sitaqhubekela embili sibukene FIFA Club World Cup le qhubekako. We know there's been a lot of interest, particularly from the African southern region, particularly rooting for Mamelodi Sundowns, but unfortunately just one goal too short behind the Borussia Dortmund. Le khoneke kuwina nga 4-3. Casablanca is also now looking to be out of the FIFA Club World Cup. Shothi nje maqembu ase-Africa kwahambeli kahle kuyo le World Cup, but there are other teams lesiwalandzela kakhulu afaka ikhathi bo-Madrid nabo-Manchester City laqhubekako nekudlala lesita ukuxoxa nangawo. Master, ngubusele ekuseni Nkosi, ngikwamukele ehlelweni.
Ngiyabonga mkhulu. Ngathi ithuba lokukhulu ngivusele umbukelo weSwatini TV lo elviwa ngumsombuluko utekati indzaba tebhola ikakhulukati imidlalo yetikolo. Nkosi yami angade ngakubona nako lengakubona emavuso ngalesihlanu angaze ngakubona emidlalweni yetikolo. In fact the last time stadium siba packed kangaka for ibhola la kaNgwane ngikhumbula tikhathi trade fair
social tikolweni nama social
non sanction nje ibhola nje kuna
Premier League level
Premier League level angaze ngakubona nakuya lokho lengakubona ngalesihlanu. I think kuletha noma ku qualifier kwaletinye tetikolo Amazon Central I think ya qualifier Mbaga ya qualifier then Nhlangano Central ya qualifier bearing na wild card. I think logo ang understand ukuthi ikuphi lenkinga kubantu like solo ngiyazama ku understand ukuthi ikuphi lenkinga kahle la.
It's the rivalry, Master. Yes.
But i-rivalry ingabi ihambisane ne-hate yabona bese sekuba so much hatred, but nje I think kunaku lengubonile ngalesihlanu ngisho ukuthi sibonga sponsor because I think in 3 years nyalo solo ba sponsorisha ibhola yasetikolweni yona i-Instacash. Ngifuna nekubonga kakhulu because kunenzima lenganakeke. Uyathi i-partnership ya Eswatini TV na school sports bana Instacash lokuthi nje le ma games atawusakatwa lokuthi labamvu babone because sithe ku last 16 ku quarter final nasekuqala kuthathwa tonke letindzawo lapho khona bekhamba eSwazi TV athatha tonke lemidlalo abuya akhombisa abantu bathi banvayi man ngihleleni ngayokubukela ibhola yetikolo wathi lobonile eSpiki eKhilani wathi hayi man ngeke ngiyaya ke eSimunye wathi lobonile eSimunye wathi hayi nani inhlangano ngiyaya wathi labeka khona inhlangano kuma semifinals. In fact nalama semifinals nakhona inhlangano ibasupport abantu baseshiselweni nakhona bekugcwele kuma semifinals. Then nasekubuya ke kumavuso athi umva hayi nani ngeke ngize ngisale because ngibonile letikolo lebetikhona lapha kuma semifinals ngifuna ukutibona futhi
and the quality of football.
I think nawubuka Mnguni nawubuka the teams quality. Yes, there is a player called Quality. Central.
Yes.
I think
good player.
Good player. Marvel to watch. There is a player from Everton Pering, Wakakamets. Oh, Ngosiam. I think that boy, I'm saying he's a boy because he's still Usafunz. I think at the moment, good umdlali la kaNgwane lo sha step over kwengcayeni. Yes. Ufunza esikolweni but good umdlali lo sha step over kwendlula yena at the moment. I think le step over akakusiso futhi lesabo Lukaku sithi papa hambela umdlali. Then I think ngilo lesekufuna ke lokho ibhola yasetikolweni beyivele ina that thing uyabona the flair uyabona entertaining football ukuthi labamvu kuma stands bahlale bajabulile bahlale bathokotile. Evelyn Bering bama champions ayo i-Instacash soccer tournament 2025 bashaya yona i-Central bashaya kuma penalties. I think for i-Central because nawubuka ukuthi bona kule minyaka leng3 ya Instacash bafike kulama finals onke. That's a good record. Kuthi bafike konke yes bawine yinye. Yes, the past 3 years. Kule kuqala bakhala phasi, kule sibili bayiwina ku Evelyn Bering last year by humiliator 6-0. Then this year iBering I think iqhamuke prepared iqhamuke ilungiselele ngato tonke tindlela futhi nangithi ngato tonke tindlela on and off the field. Mentally ngoba lo mntu utawucabanga lokunye. Mentally the supporters, the teachers, the players, because lokumcwa kakhulu ukuthi na udlala ema finals la kanje utakutodlala kaManzini lapho khona ngasho ukuthi i-fan base yayo iManzini Central yinyenti, so kumele uchamuke uprepared. The number of passes latile, I think
credit again to Evelyn Bering High School, Labotishela, and the management yale team ngoba I think that decision yabo was wise. The way good see, we are going to their territory. Akufuni basengame ngema supporters. Financially as Kokentongen Bashalet Kona Sibambisane. Bonke abantu abesikole abafuna kuyawubukela betekta ubukela. That was a good vote of confidence from the fans, from the bantwana besikole abaseBering and the school. Kunemlayeto ke lana master lobuya ku D Uhlophe. He's a teacher there but he's also part of the coaching staff. Bekufuna ube waphathizwe umlingano wakho. Kodwa ke sengidawuphathisa kuwe ngoba vele nisebenza kanye kanye
uyabukela
phathizwe bekahle kule studio leso makasho with the confidence but ke the confidence vele ihlolete United since is a United fan sesiyidayele with confidence ukuthi Evelyn Bering will lose to Central. What is Central will score 3 goals during regular time. Ngathi mina iBering isho ukuthi ngayikore ngisho linye ke noma ngabe seyadliwa wathi uma ikorile he's going to be surprised ukuthi ikorile nangelo mlight but umtshele ukuthi ngithe mina akuhlatshelwa usaya emashingweni.
I think somewhere somehow inkumbi ebamvu the result ya last year and nekwati mhlambe ukuthi iCentral mentally babalungisela kanganani before this game. I think ngiloko mhlambe lokwende ukuthi inkumbi ebamvu bacabanga ukuthi
but Petizo wa credit to the style of football ye Central ukuthi bavele bayembili washo wathi Bering idlala beautiful football ipass but it might not be sufficient because Central had beaten Baga ledlala almost the style of Evelyn Bering ngekuvele iyembili, so he made his assessment which was wrong.
In fact Mnguni asinike credit coaching staff Evelyn Bering because kule final totally changed the approach yashintsha kakhulu. In fact bebathi nabaya nabo baya embili baye with i-purpose. iCentral seyathi njoba bekashito phathizo ukuthi vele the team ithi nayembili iyagijima bona ngeke uzobakhanze mhlambe benta those 5-6 passes no bona vele bafuna kembili bafuna coral goal.
The attendance crazy, sorry this the
attendance njoba ngisho angade ngayibona yona and kule ngisakhuluma ngeattendance Mnguni. Labanye bamvu ngeke understand i-rivalry ebholeni. Nakufika in fact iCentral yayidlala emhlangano Central beyidlala neMbaka. Ma fans enhlangano Central aphutha kufika. Inhlangano Central beyisupportwa iManzini Central against Mbaka. Babahlabelela nayingena iCentral bababita ukuthi abethe kutohlala la but ke bangeke understand bacabanga ukuthi bathi ababafuni la. Now understand ukuthi iManzini Central beyodlala neBering iyade ukuthi inhlangano Central abavani neBering so bafuna kuhlala ndzawonye uyabona bathi wotani lohlala la kithi siyanisupporta besolo sinisupport bathi nabayofuna space ngale bathi kusetsheni ngalo opposite the Royal Box ku stand sayo i-VIP. Talking about i-VIP bebakhona cishe labakhulu minister wetenkundla yes Sikhumbuzo Dlamini bekakhona buholi bayo labadlalisa ibhola etikolweni then ngosi yami
master it's so packed kude indzawo tekuhlala abantu baze bahlala lokungahlalwa khona but so lokuncikiswene and I love the way ukuthi you see the police presence lebeyita kuqinisekisa ukuthi akukude lemisindvo lebesinga anticipate with the rivalries la khona but labantwana ngathi bathi phatha kahle bonke.
No kakhulu in fact even after game nje khona le ngathi ngajabula kakhulu nangibona fans eManzini Central labangafunzi after labantwana babe disappointed ukuthi badliwe khona lwata makujika something and labangathi sebakhulile bagucuka bayakulabantwana bathi ningaqali nikwende lokho
bakhutwa ngibakeki
yeah exactly ningaqali nikwende lokho sesebancane ukuthi ningenda lo hooligans lobo so I think credit kuyo manje letikolo letidlalile mnguni kuyi Instacash soccer tournament 2026 the attendance the football look
better in blue central in green I want to believe yeah
yes I think nawubuka njoba ngisho ukuthi again kwaqala inhlangano central nembaka nakhona le third place playoff nakhona the beautiful football
already packed stadium
already packed ngale ngesheya bekunembaka inabo bahlabelela then ngalana kunemanzini central support inhlangano central nayifika inhlangano central yahamba yahlala mshiya loya yendele ukuthi nabo bato supporter besikolo sawo.
It's interesting, Master, because you know I was following mostly on social media and the stream. I was studying the fan behavior. Evelyn Bering supporters were supporting Nhlangano Central, funny enough, against Mbaga. I think it was a Shiselweni thing, leyabe siyabe ngama ukuthi bakithi labantu. Nasi Shiselo siyele kamanzi nasibuye niswine song. A lot of people were saying we want. Those were the comments that I was seeing.
No.
Maybe on the ground it was different because when you were on the ground, I'm speaking online.
Yeah.
Evelyn Bering people were saying Ishiselo won the day.
Mnguni. Angathi kusikula ama comments like social media abantu bebabukela people again Evelyn Bering because bese itodlala i-final ngicabanga ukuthi lokho for imbaka ukuthi bakhweshele Evelyn Bering because bekhlela imbaka la bekumele kuhlale khona iBering yathi nje nayiphela igame embaka basuka ngosiyami bahamba babuka ukuthi bahlala kuphi encenye yahlala Evelyn Bering that was class I think le atmosphere lapha enkundleni yasemavuso I think ngicabanga ukuthi njoba ngisho mina ukuthi ebholeni yakithi the last time ngikubona lokho bekusadlala i-trade fair the old trade fair.
It's how many years ago?
I can't even remember ukuthi how many years ago.
But these are the penalty shootouts. I think let's have a commentary. Let us see Palace Tombe Gwendegani lana. We can see clearly there's a central player going to take the first penalty.
Under the National First Division, formerly known as Tabangulu Kelly's Red Rhinos, the team.
Yes, former Royal Leopards under 19 juniors.
But now for
yeah, so Master, I just wanted to hear the fan reaction, mostly Nangena Lamako. That was for me, and then we can react. Because I suppose here the tension is so high, every goal matters.
We had to go to Lapa Central. Yathi nayikora lama penalties lwaqala ku Geja ngumdlali wa Evelyn Bering. The stadium bokungathi I could feel tinwele tami tisuka la hloko uyabona.
But it wasn't the captain I want to believe because this is the captain.
Yeah, the captain.
Who is also all nations captain, let's just say. It's a good player.
I think vele cishe labadlali mnguni
oh no.
Ngesikhathi ke amisa lapho stadium kwakungathi siyaphakama ngathi bova even edolobheni ngamanzini ukuthi ngathi bayeva lokuthi yona Evelyn Bering seyigejile but
I would have loved to hear the sound the fan reaction sound there on the miss. But it was only commentary.
Buka ngalemva kolipali ukuthi the number of fans asahleli phansi. You remember nangabe ibhola eSouth Africa boyilandzela ngaphosa ngathi ngama-80s.
We have to expose ukuthi unganani. Keep going, Master. Keep going.
The fans bekachubeka bahlala ngalendlela lahleli ngayo but the penalties I think the penalties wona nje awodwa aletha nje excitement wona nje because Evelyn Bering after Ageje captain after Ageje captain was Evelyn Bering yabuya iCentral yageja penalty then bese kufaka ke ukuthi
we are level now. Our odds are level.
The goalkeepers kumele ukuthi kube ngibo it was time for the goalkeepers to shine.
It's interesting about Master, obviously, my penalties, they keep you at the edge of your seat. Every goal matters. When you were there, I want to ask you, ngoba phathizwe washeshe wathi khomsa uthi ungakuphi. Wena na ukhuluma iqiniso lakho naNkulunkulu wakho. Nayicala le game lena about ukuthi wina bani.
Conflicted.
So you were not sure?
No, conflicted because of ngishiselo. Like ngishiselo.
Okay, through and through.
Yeah, and the comment against Evelyn Perring angende ngaba more ku Evelyn Perring because mina bamvu lathi labamvu labenda kahle. That's why ukhanza ngihlale ngibuta bamvu why Evelyn Perring inyanyo kangaka. Is it because benda tinvo kahle?
Yeah.
Because bona bacashe amabhasi bakhokha inombolo letinengi. No. Ema teams lenda kahle aswa supporting. In fact kumele scope info le kahle. That's why ngale kuma stands ngale ku Evelyn Perring wabona even nama fans nsingizini even nalolo sha scope kunsingizini akhona alekelela yona iPerring because almost baphose bafana.
Master, sinele sibena inhlanhla ekufunza khona Evelyn Perring sikutayile lokho. There's nothing new. Evelyn Perring, if you could see the trophy cabinet, ungacabanga ukuthi Premier League team lemadima they win. Sengithi win, sengahamba kodwa ke solo phela ngiyiPerring. And if you will allow me to be biased. Master, the same day iPerring iwina la, the chess team was also winning national championships.
Yeah.
So the winning culture there is something very letayelekile. Kuke kwaba neminyaka kuwinwe choral music, ku football, ku basketball, ka chess, ka debate. Cishe yonke lento kubuye number 1 ePerring. Kufanele inyanya.
Asangikuchazele just very brief. Ngikuchazele ngeEvelyn Perring. Bose ngafike high school. Siyodlala la ngifunza khona.
Ngisose kumana abukene.
No, ngangende ngathi ngimdzala kakhulu. Siyadlala la bengifunza eJerusalem. Uthi ke coach wethu because bekune under 17 ne-elite. Uthi ke coach wethu ngidawuthathani neka baka elite ngende nje ngiganga nginifake under 17 nodlala neEvelyn Perring. Kanzi Evelyn Perring lama 17 angathi akusiyo even na B team na C team. Bafike basha 4-1. Basha the LI team.
Kum D team.
Basha 4-1 hands down. Bathi ngathi nasengiyiveleni ukuthi la bashayile akusiyo even ne C team. La bashayile so. Congratulations kuyo Evelyn Perring ngekuba ama champions Insta Cash 2026. I think ba deserve yes mhlambe bangenile ngeWorld Cup but after logo batkhombisile ukuthi bama champions.
Master, I love the fact that utsena uqala you gave credit to all the people that played a pivotal role ekutheni nomsebenzi wema sports ube ngilomuhle particularly lowe bhola. Ubale obviously the sponsor which is Instacash was they have done amazing and even nala matches now buka partner with Jimo. Beautiful jerseys, Evelyn Perring in blue, Central in green, true to their colors.
Le jersey ba sponsorishe ngijoma.
Yeah, Joma,
yes, ba sponsorishe with the jersey, matrix suit. I think kuhle siyabonga kakhulu. In fact, ema sponsors on the day nje, Instacash, Joma, Leseho,
Eswatini TV.
Eswatini TV,
mainly Eswatini TV. Ngoba nalama visuals, beautiful replays, fan reactions, commentary, Fabrice Msonera. It's just Eswatini TV has done amazing.
Kakhulu. In fact bonke bakhuluma ngayo le broadcast school sports ukuthi kaNswazi TV capable kangaka because inqombe bamvu beba underrater indlela Eswatini TV la shootha ngayo but with wona lama school sports game I think wonke muvu siyabona ukuthi ba capable kanganani staff sa Eswatini TV ukuthi singasakada unlike nakulo kwenteke kulamanye mhlambe ngeke ngikusho but nje with Eswatini TV ngicabanga ukuthi konke kuhambe kahle bana Instacash nawo onke lama sponsors la support lemidlalo yetikolo.
And that is the fan reaction there after the final bell rang declaring that Evelyn Perring are the eventual winners. Some disappointed, some happy. This is the squad. Evelyn Perring lifting the trophy up. such a beautiful moment. Some are crying, some are happy, overzealous, but one thing for sure, emotions were high, intense, it was very intense, and we hope that going forward again, even next year, we see the same numbers being pulled into a final. Whichever teams make it to the final, even if it's not Evelyn betting. It's 8 a.m. We hope you have yourselves a good week, a great start to your week.